Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Caroline Slater.
And I'm her brother Sean.
And today we are discussing minute 34. It begins with Miles looking through the comics and ends a minute later with Miles falling.
What did you end up naming this minute?
I named it Jumping from One Building. Instead of jumping from building to building, he jumps from one building. I thought it was
jumping
funny.
From building.
I thought of that. I'm like, no, I'm just going to specifically say one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost did put jumping from building. I'm like, let's make this a little less gruesome. Do you want to start with your notes?
Yeah. Just wanted to point out, this is the same comic that Miles had been looking at earlier in the movie. As he's flipping through the comics, you can see some of the stuff from the, like, oh, why is this happening? How is this possible? You see that going through as he's flipping through, and then we get to the new stuff, which is, I did like the kind of tie-in where it shows him jumping in the panel. You see when he says I'm doing it, it goes like the words leap, and later in the minute when Miles is falling down from the thing, it's got the
that's
thrown on that,
one of my favorite uses of the comic aesthetic that they do.
Yeah, that definitely like had to grow on me. When I first saw it, I was just like, ugh. But I like that, and then how it's such a great tie-in later in the movie when he does the falling up, and like finally has his like gets better control of his powers, and it's does a similar thing where the text like follows him on the screen.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up that I really liked about this comic is I love the parallels they did with the panels in the comic and then Miles actually getting ready to do it the first time.
Yeah.
It's very clever. Like, the building is exactly the same. They do the same pan out on the side look, him looking down at the
I like how it's him like checking the comic to see if it's the same building too.
Yeah.
He like looks at it, he's like, nope, not this one. Oh, it's this one.
Yeah, like that. Beautiful. It was great.
Yeah, and that whole visual gag of him running up the building, looking over it, being like, nope, running down it and looking for a smaller building to jump off of.
I think what I liked about it the most, and this is really the first time I noticed it, so it's made me love this scene even more, is that it really does kind of set up as the same way as it does in the comic he's reading. So, like, when Peter's looking down, I think he says, you just gotta do it at that point. It's like the same angle and almost the exact same shot. Not Peter. Billy. Sorry. Miles has the same shot, and you're like, okay, he's gonna go for it. And then it cuts to him jumping, like, walking down the stairs. And I'm like, oh, or not. He's not gonna do it.
I think it's enhanced too by the fact that like you have that really dramatic music and it's all like he's gonna do it, yeah, but then it just like cuts off and you just hear him running back down the stairs and you hear like the car horn going off in the background.
It's just a very,
and then him running back up and then the dramatic music comes back on.
It's great. I love that so much. So well done.
I also liked how when he tripped over the reason he tripped was because he had one of his shoes untied, and so it was his like own choice that caused it.
Yeah.
And like it was his like own fault, and I think that's kind of like good for him in that it wasn't something like outside of his control that caused him to like that to happen.
It's almost like by having him, once again, the theme of choice getting brought up in this movie. By having him trip over his shoelace, his choice, it's almost symbolic of him getting in his own way. Currently at the beginning of his journey. Yeah,
and it's just like the only reason he's not necessarily a better Spider-Man is because, or like the reason it takes him so long to become a good Spider-Man is because of his own self-doubt and holding himself back. versus just like not having the abilities there.
He's very doubting. He's very self-conscious. You can tell he's scared. I mean, obviously he's about to jump off a building. But it's such a great choice. And the other thing I really appreciate about him being tripped over the shoes, that they establish it quite a few times.
Yeah.
Twice, right? There's only 2 times he's... I can think of the one.
I think.
3 times?
Yeah, it's... I think
When
Gwen says it to him. I think his dad might say it to him, or Uncle Aaron says it to him, and then Peter says it to him earlier.
I know Peter says it. I know the student says it, and I know he trips earlier in like the very beginning of the movie when he's doing the stickers.
That might be it. I don't remember if his dad comments on it, but yeah, he trips.
Yeah.
This child says it to him. A kid says it to him.
And this man says it's a choice, and we talked about that.
and then Peter mentions it to him. So it comes up 3 times prior to this, and then it kind of pays off. Like, this is the payoff of those.
Yeah,
jokes.
And I do love that they show that he's tripped over it already, so it's not like, oh, they're just talking about it, but then they do it. It's like, no, he's tripped over it before, and now we're seeing him do it again. It's like, oh, okay, we see that, like, we get it. Like, it's happened already. And this is also,
like, the curb, but 1,000 times taller.
Where,
like, he already steps on it, trips over the curb, splats everywhere. And his dad's there to pick him up, and this time he trips over it, and the splats
flag
everywhere,
is there to grab him.
Yeah, but
the hotel
like
flag.
he splats down, and there's no one there to pick him up this time. And Peter said he was going to be there, and now he's not there, and so Miles has to like pick himself up and go on his adventure now, at least as far as he knows, alone.
Still not over Peter's death.
Yeah,
that minute sticks with you. Those few minutes.
It was only like a minute ago.
Still, really sticks with me.
Yeah, I did. It was kind of funny when he bounced off of the wires. Like, those should have definitely caused some sort of electric zapping of some sort. Whether it would have zapped him, like fried him a little bit, or caused something. Because, like, normally, in theory, you can hang on to a single one of those wires and nothing will happen. But once you touch more than 2, like once you touch 2 of them together through your body,
you get like all of them.
Yeah, then that creates a like complete circuit and you go zap. And then when he hits the ground, at the very end of the minute we have the little bright green pop up of the USB breaking.
Yeah, I love that visual.
Yeah, it's very colorful. Like, again, it's that sort of super contrast to what the background looks like.
Yeah, and it happens so fast and yet not at the same time. Like, I remember the first few times I watched the movie just straight through, I always thought it was just a flash, and I'm like, wait, what did I just see there? Like, my brain never registered, like, I always kind of shortened how long it was on there, and then seeing them, I'm like, oh, it's actually up there quite a bit of time. Like, so your brain can register, oh crap, what happened?
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of the way Scott Pilgrim integrated its comic language into the movie versus how some of it's done here, where like most of that tried to be integrated seamlessly almost, and like keep everything sort of like look like it's together, whereas some of the language here, like with the like with this pop-up and the jumping across the train tracks a couple minutes ago, feels deliberately meant to take you out, like to be like, this is not part of it, like, look at this. And it's different too from like the way the explosions were happening in the assembly room.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they know when they want to have, like, even the small things like the onomatopoeia words.
Yeah, and the little movement lines.
Yeah, and the little movement lines, like, those feel very integrated in the world. Where stuff, like, even just the text boxes and stuff, it feels very much for, like, here's a little fun thing for the audience, or it's a way to, like, or tell the audience, or show the audience something that maybe the characters don't know yet.
Yeah.
I really I think it's fun and clever.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree.
That is really all I have for this scene overall, though. There wasn't
It's
too much
a
to write
pretty
on.
short minute. I mean, they're all a minute long, but it's
Pretty
it's a,
short minute. Well, you know.
it's a quick minute, I guess, is a better thing. Like
It's one of those minutes where
one action that happens.
yeah, it's very much just it's a continuous scene. Like we've had a few of those where they're just like there's not much to report. There's not too many Easter eggs. It's more
There's
of a
no
setup for
talking.
something. Yeah, it's
I don't think a
definitely
single
more.
word of dialogue is said other than his ah.
Would you really consider that dialogue though, or would you? Just...
No, but I mean, it's the voice actor had to make the noise.
Good point.
So
Yeah, but he did. But that's all I have. So do you have anything else to add?
no, I think I'll move on and touch on how this scene is different in the alternate scenes in the alternate version, because this one completely replaces the whole like him reading the comics and jumping up or climbing up that visual gag.
Mm-hmm. So wait, just a reminder, we talked a little bit in the last episode about the alternate scene. So this would be right after the funeral.
Yeah, it's kind of it's pretty much the same exact, like the funeral scene's extended a little bit, where Kingpin does says a couple words, and that's when Miles like recognizes him and runs away out of the crowd. And then we stopped the talking about the alternate scene there because that's pretty much where that minute ends. And then this minute picks up, or the next part of the alternate scene is him and Genki watching the movie that, like, in the alternate ones they seem to be using the movie as the throughput of how, like, kind of he gets trained in the beginning, versus here it's Miles using the comics.
Okay.
And so it's Genki and Miles watching one of the Billy Barker movies, and it's like a training montage from the movie where Spider-Man is like, okay, to like practice I have to, like, he jumps against the wall, and it's like I just got to do it again and again, and so he like does it twice, fails, and then does it a third time, is like succeeds, and so Genki's like, well, he obviously did it 3 times, so that means you have to do it 3 times. And you'll be good to go. And then Miles tries it and just like falls, face first into the wall and falls down 3 times, and then he does it 4, and then 5, and Genki's like, maybe 5 times, maybe, or maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times, and then he keeps failing, and then they make a list of like things that need to get done, and it's get good at being Spider-Man, save Brooklyn from the Collider, write physics punishment essay,
physics punishment essay.
and then it does
his essay on Great Expectations. That's a great tie gag.
And it does a really cool, like, these scenes do a neat thing where, like, it shows the movie and, like, Peter being, or Spider-Man being really cool, and something cool happening, like, oh, here's a really cool high-tech spider suit that's being built, and then it like cuts the movie frame in half, and like on the other side it's Miles trying to do it, but it's just him putting back on his cheap mask, and and does like stuff like that. There's a montage of them trying to figure out like what the web shooter should be, and he's like, maybe a fishing pole, like that doesn't work. He's like, maybe a bullwhip, and that doesn't work. And then interspersed in there, it has some cuts of like Miles in school doing work, and it shows him getting a 90 on one of his tests, and the teacher's like, oh, good job, see, if you actually apply yourself you'll be good. It's his physics teacher, and she's like, so did you, or how's that essay come along? He's like, oh, I'm almost done, and it like pans down to the page and nothing's written. And like it shows some more of the split screen is like Spider-Man walking down the street with adoring fans, and Miles walking down the school hallway in pain. Yeah, it's just they cut the side by sides. They do a couple of those, and then the last thing they shows, or I guess the last thing that's shown is this like YouTube video of fake Spidey failing, and it's like clips of him, that
Fake
a bunch
Spidey.
of kids are watching on like their phone, and like I'm guessing it's supposed to be Gwen, like looks at him like walking past in pain, and then like looks over at the video clip, and like it's kind of implied that she's starting to make the connection between the two of them, that like, oh, this is the same person, and that's why I feel connected to him somehow. And then it's like does some more of the side by sides, and then it cuts to him falling off of the building and breaking the USB, like at the end of this minute.
Okay.
And the one thing I just realized, like, it depending on what the time skip is like, but especially with that whole like montage, has he just been carrying that USB around with him like the whole time everywhere he goes?
Like, I wouldn't just leave that around. Like, I'd probably carry it around with me too.
Yeah, it's
but still, that's also like, that feels dangerous.
Yeah, I feel like I would lose that before breaking it.
Right.
But, I mean, I guess with the way he's jumping around and everything, it's just as likely going both ways.
Part of me kind of wish that scene was in here, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that just sounds so funny. But then again, I feel like I always do this where I'm like, that I kind of wish they did that, but then I always am like, but I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like that alt scene lasts a couple minutes, and this one pretty much gets the same point across in a much shorter time, and it flows slightly differently. Like I'm curious to see the alt scenes coming up where like the Peter B. Parker starts to come in, and see how they interact with both of the characters that way, both Genki and Peter, new Peter.
Yeah, I think the thing I always, like, part of me always kind of wants with these alternate scenes, but I'm also always glad that they did, and it really always comes back to the use of Genki.
Yeah.
I love the idea of him as a character, and I hope in the sequel, because I really want there to be a sequel, that they do bring him along and start developing his character for maybe the ideas, or at least some of them for what they originally had for this movie, because I think it's a great idea. I'm still happy that they didn't use him, because it does make Miles' story much more poignant, much more effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like the thing I like about Genki is he's like he's the everyman character in Miles' stories. Like he's who the audience is able to relate to. Like there's times where Genki's like, but you're a superhero, like wouldn't that be awesome? And Miles is like, no, it's not awesome. Like he kind of says what everybody is sort of thinking, and it gives a good, like he's a good quote unquote normal person, as weird as Genki is. He's pretty nerdy in the comics.
Yeah.
Not pretty. He's very nerdy in the comics, but like he's the the stand-in for the everyman.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason I like that he's not really a big part of this movie is the fact that this story with Miles definitely feels like it's Miles transitioning from being like the everyman to the superhero person.
Yeah, he's still he's still able to be the everyman in this movie.
Yeah, where if you had Genki in here, it's like, well, now you have two everymen. Doesn't really work as well, as strong. I do want them to do a training style montage with Genki in the future, though.
Yeah.
Because that would be amazing. Obviously, they can't do this one because at that point, Miles is already in control.
It'd be a little silly of him trying to like, here, you gotta stick to the wall, and he's like, I already know how to do that. Okay, then on to the next thing. Web shooters, already have those. Okay then.
But I love this idea of like Genki just like training, like trying to help him train and stuff. Like just like, okay, we're gonna go to the local like harbor. We're gonna go to the lake, and I'm just gonna throw rocks, and you're gonna have to catch them.
Yeah.
with your webs while swinging. Like, just, I feel like that idea would be fun. Like, I think they could find some other fun, creative ways for Miles to both fail and succeed and have Genki involved.
Yeah, or just have like more normal people activities going on and just have
Yeah.
Genki be in there. Like, him and Genki doing Lego in their,
Yeah.
at home.
The point is, I want Genki in
Yeah.
future installments. I love him. I love this alternate version in the alternate scenes. I love this version they made of him. Like, he's just so not in this movie, and I love the idea of him being, like, really close with Miles, and I love the scenes they did eventually cut. I'm like, I do love them.
Yeah, that's all I have for the alternate scene. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
That's all I have overall.
Sounds good. Then thank you for joining us today. Join us on Wednesday where we discuss minute 35.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.